Hello. Today I will quickly talk about the dashboard, like the backend overview of it. So we got this is a backend kind of document, and what happened is we have some kind of like backend API. So we have some object types. So the grab setting is grabbing exactly from the database. And then we have the graph data, which is the same as the thing in the database as well. So graph database. So these are like commonly used object type that being like in the thing. So access period for the access period things of the graph data, and then the graph object, and then the graph categories and the value types. So which value type that is for the for basically the graph, like what was that one for? Yeah, and then for some common object that we use for some of the things. So this is an edit input structure. So basically it just so every time we put an edit something to edit, it's always gonna follow the structure. So it's had an ID, and then it has a data, which is an object. So for the scene object is just a type for that, and then we have the get data input structure. So it's just get graph data. So basically, just grab the or for all graph data, it's gonna using this structure to get the data. And then for the output structure, it's always gonna follow this structure as well. So it says either success or fail, what measure that happens, and the result can be the object. So for some of them, they won't have the result object because it just either success or fail kind of result. So you don't really need that uh, things there because it already has the boolean saying success or fail. And then yeah, like the get graph data success is slightly different because you have to put the graph settings for that current user, and also you grab the data for it as well. So for the backend endpoint, almost all of them have get, insert, edit, and delete. So they pretty much follow the same kind of similar things. So type get, type post, pass, patch, and delete, and then it just so for this is using the get graph input structure, and then like it return an output structure. So basically like what we have here, and then most of these one which is the output structure, and it just input to that type, that data type kind of thing. So it's fairly simple for most of these. So x-axis periods is exactly the same. Get, so this probably get everything. Um, and uh, and so on. So we have graph settings, so it does the same thing. And also for the graph, we only have a get all because we just need to get all the graph for the front end. Basically all the graph with all its categories. So yeah, that's kind of all the back end endpoint. And then for these Azure function, so we have Azure function that run once a month, and what happens is just run for to collect all the data for all of these graphs. Uh, so yeah, knowledge, and so basically these one are grabbing from the API and the third-party API that we're collecting. Um, and also we have an init kind of thing just so that it just graph the first data putting into the graph as well. Um, and then yeah, so for each of the data collection, we have a little bit of details on them. So for example, this one is just manual input, so it's a bit simple. But let's say if we have like knowledge for big anti-secure score, so we grab that API, so we go through that API document, and then so API respond, and basically kind of like how we map that data to our database, like what value we take and stuff like that. So most of these one are doing that. Yeah, so most of these one, for most of the Microsoft stuff, we we basically doing the similar things. Like it has some mapping as well, and we have the API that collecting it. Um, and so for the cyber, we use Fortinizer and so on. So these are just like a way to collect the data for that particular graph. So yeah, basically, so these are all the stuff that we have. So overall, we have So some of the object type, some of the common objects that we've been used, and then we have all the backend endpoints from our from here, and finally we got and then we have the function, and finally the details of how we collect the data. So yeah, that's a bit of overall picture of everything in this project for the backend. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in another time then. Hello?